What's up, losers? Today I'm back with another r/fatlogic escapade. Checking out a couple of intriguing posts, sharing my responses to them, and having a few laughs. This is episode 103 in the Fatlogic series. And I'm ready to be amazed by the magic of fat liberation. So without further delay, let's get into it.
Big Time Body Liberation, a space to talk about resisting weight stigma for folks in bigger bodies. This group provides a safer space for folks in fat, larger, plus-size, thick, voluptuous, rotund, corpulent, monarch-sized, zaftig, chubby, and fluffy bodies, or any other language you might use to describe your experience moving through the world in a bigger body, to explore topics and experiences with distressed and disordered eating, weight-based discrimination, addressing internalized fatphobia/sizeism, strategies for self-advocacy in relationships and in healthcare settings, and resisting diet culture through body liberation.
Well, that all sounds like a lot of fun, doesn't it? Who wouldn't want to join? It'll look great on your CV and everything, haha. No, but seriously, if people want to join a group like this, to feel like they belong somewhere, and have their experience recognized, then that's up to them. I'm sure that I would find the group's ideas about diet culture, weight-based discrimination, and body liberation wholly unconvincing, and I can think of plenty of things that would undoubtedly be a better use of their time. Like, going to the gym, but it's their life, and it's their choice. I certainly wouldn't want to get the group shut down or anything. They can have their fun. It occurs to me that the group could run into a few problems though, as far as entry requirements go. Because as we've all seen, time and time again, fat activists tend to get very defensive over what truly qualifies as fat, and who gets to identify as fat. You can bet your bottom dollar they're not going to want some privileged mid-sized person to come waltzing on in, flaunting their thin privilege in front of the infinifits and superfits. That just wouldn't be right. So there has to be some way of separating the wheat from the fat, as it were, and making sure that the only people who get in are the crème de la crème of the fat community. I've pondered what kind of test they might apply to decide who gets granted admission, and I've come up with a few possibilities. The most obvious is probably some kind of eating contest. Chicken wings, hot dogs, ribs maybe, but you could also go the other way, and test them according to how few push-ups they can do, or how out of breath they get from walking up a flight of stairs. But all of these come with their own set of weaknesses, or loopholes, so perhaps the best method is just to have a specifically sized chair, and say that only those who can't fit in the chair are allowed in the group. I'm just spitballing though. If anyone has any better ideas, feel free to share them with me, haha.
My body is a protest. Existing in my fat body and making no effort to shrink it. In fact, to be publicly against shrinking it is a protest, and I'm proud of that. But sometimes I just want to rest. Sometimes I just want to go out for a meal, or walk down the street in peace. Sometimes I want to hang out with friends and coworkers, without having to explain myself. When your body is the protest, you never get to do that. You never get to put the sign down at the end of the day and stop marching. You can't take a day, or a week, or a month off. No one will let you. But what choice do we have? We either give in and attempt to shrink ourselves, or we sign up to a non-stop battle. Either way, the physical, emotional, and mental cost is too high. If you're a thin person in this tiny corner of the Twitterverse, please remember that, yes, we're all fighting for the same thing, but the difference is that you get to pick and choose when to do it. Fat people are not afforded that luxury.
This sounds a lot like what my black friends say about anti-racism work. When your body is the protest, you don't have the privilege of taking a break from it, and it's exhausting and demoralizing every damn day.
God, do they have to be so dramatic all the time? They really seem to think they're Nelson Mandela. Or something. Courageously standing up to overwhelming oppression. Rather than random self-conscious fat people. Who don't want to go on a diet. Like, you're not doing something by choosing to stay fat. Other than putting your own health at risk. I guess. It's really not that deep. And the overblown theatrics of this post are honestly just embarrassing. Setting aside the tone of the post though, I can acknowledge that it touches upon some aspects of the fat experience that are probably very unpleasant. So I will say that if people you know, or people in public, make rude comments about you or your body, then that sucks. And I'm sorry. Nobody deserves to be subjected to that kind of treatment, regardless of their size. And people who dish out such abuse should be ashamed of themselves. However, none of this should be taken as a reason to reject dieting. They are separate issues. You are not showing anybody by electing to stay fat, nor are you working towards a better future. You are just engaging in self-sabotage. It's as simple as that. So by all means, call people out on their unsolicited remarks. They deserve it, but don't respond to their negativity by turning your brain off, doubling down, and punishing your own body. Because that's not going to achieve anything. It's not justice. It's not even revenge. It's just unhealthy. And you owe yourself more than that.
Absolutely astounding that scientists can agree that thousands of microbes have existed on this planet for billions of years, before mammals showed up, but still believe natural biodiversity is so limited that fat people are a recent aberration of capitalism. Which is it?
What? I think my brain just melted. What on earth is this poster talking about? And how can they possibly think that they're making anything close to a good point? Fat people are not biodiversity, because they're not a different species, or some wild genetic anomaly. They're just normal people, who ate too much, and put on a lot of weight. Thousands of microbes that existed on Earth billions of years ago couldn't have less to do with why so many people are fat these days. And the fact that this post thinks that its linking of the two is in any way logical is flat out bonkers. When people say that fat people are a recent aberration, they don't mean that there were literally no fat people in the past. They mean that the kind of obesity that we see everywhere these days was much rarer in earlier societies, because the social and economic conditions were different, and because the food environment was completely unlike the calorie-drenched fever dream we inhabit today. Shifting to a more sedentary lifestyle, and putting a McDonald's on every corner, has seen a marked increase in the proportion of the population that is obese. Even over the past few decades. This is borne out in recorded statistics, in the testimony of older people who have witnessed this shift, and even in photographs remaining from decades gone by, which are likely to display significantly fewer obese people than they would if similar pictures were taken today. None of this is a consequence of humans naturally evolving to become fatter at 1,000,000 miles an hour. It is an utterly predictable outcome of lifestyle and diet changes on a societal level. So I'm sorry to ruin the fun, but no, fat people are not a special new developing species, or a precious jewel of biodiversity. They are just normal people, living in a strange food environment that they have not yet learned to cope with. But the good news is that they can learn. There is nothing stopping them, other than a lack of knowledge, or perhaps a lack of will. So with the right amount of education and encouragement, maybe we can eventually start to reverse this trend, and move back towards how things were before. Because regardless of how you categorize fatness, it is a serious impediment to living a healthy and active life. And that's something that we should all be able to aspire to.
The fact is, that weight is as genetic as height. Fat people are systematically oppressed. and treated terribly by all of society, just for being how our bodies naturally just are. Yet nobody is telling straight-sized tall people, "You're an epidemic. You're a disease." Oh, I'm just concerned for your health. Being overweight and carrying excess height is bad for your health, and you should restrict your eating, exercise, or get height loss surgery to mutate your leg/spine. To reduce your height, get healthy. All it takes is willpower.
Man, I've said it before, and I'll say it again. Who do these people think they're kidding with this stuff? We all know that weight is not like height, because our height doesn't constantly change according to how much we eat at any given point of time. And because we can't lose height by eating less and going on runs a couple of times a week. Furthermore, the whole notion of weight being genetically determined doesn't stand up to any level of scrutiny, even when you exclude the possibility of weight loss. Like, do these fat people, many of whom are constantly putting on more weight, think that they're in some extended fat puberty, or something, that even at the age of 25, 30, or 40, they haven't reached their natural genetic weight yet, but that eventually they'll get there, and their weight will become fixed regardless of how much or little they eat. Because if they are holding out hope for this eventuality, all I can say is, their faith is badly misplaced. So no, people don't tell tall people to restrict their eating, or exercise, to get shorter, because it wouldn't bloody work. And no, people aren't getting grotesque surgeries to shorten their legs or spines, because there would be no benefit to doing so. The fact that I am being forced to explain any of this honestly makes me want to slam my head into a wall. As far as fat people being treated terribly by society goes, sure, people could be more compassionate and understanding towards fat people. I will readily admit that. But once again, can we not mix this reasonable critique in with all of the other delusional nonsense? It's only making it harder, and in this case, borderline impossible, for people to take you seriously. So if you really want to improve the public reputation of fat people, I can assure you, this is not the way to go about it, at all.
Hot take. Your brands, extended sizes, are not inclusive if you only offer them online, and not in store like the straight sizes. Hashtag plus size. Hashtag plus size problems. Hashtag fatphobia. Hashtag fatphobic.
You know, if there's one lesson I've taken away from all my time spent browsing r/fatlogic, it's that there's no point trying to appease fat activists. Because no matter what you do, it'll never be enough, and they'll just use your efforts as more ammunition in their ongoing war against society. These brands that went to the effort of offering extended sizes probably expected to be given a whole bunch of credit online, and bask in the praise and increased sales. But no, instead, they just get torn into and called fatphobic like everyone else. Because even though the extended sizes are readily available to anyone with an internet connection, the symbolism of not having them physically present on the shelf is just too horrible to bear. I think the reason fat activists always respond like this is because the fat acceptance movement, generally speaking, is not a movement that exists to solve tangible real-world problems. No matter how it strives to present itself this way, and we sure know it doesn't exist to help fat people, haha. It exists, in my view, at least, primarily to deliver emotional gratification and a space to vent for fat activists who are, whether they admit it or not, deeply frustrated and unsatisfied with their lives, but who are unwilling to accept the possibility that this dissatisfaction could be of their own making. Like, let's be real, even if stores did everything that fat activists wanted with regard to plus-size clothing options, it still wouldn't make them any happier. They would just find something else to complain about, because that's what they do. I'm sure that the person who wrote this post, and put it up, cough cough, online, could buy clothes off the internet just fine. But they saw an opportunity to assert the victim status that they so covet. And they took it. Remedying the issue will just force them to look elsewhere for their next opportunity. Because for such people, the desire for victimhood comes first. And everything else just follows along. As sad as that might be.
3 steps for thin allies. 1. Become conscious about places where you fit. Chairs, roller coasters, booths, theaters, etc. 2. Consider if fat people would also fit. 3. If not, advocate for inclusion.
Okay, so, I wouldn't consider myself a thin ally, so these tips aren't for me. But I still have a couple of random thoughts about them. So here they are. 1. The instruction to become conscious about places where you fit is deceptively tricky in its implementation. Because I fit in everything, haha. So I guess the post is asking me to take the red pill and step out of the matrix to see how every nook and cranny of my world is shaped by thin privilege. And what can I say? That sounds scary, haha. Credit to the thin allies out there who are up for it. Because I think I'd rather take the blue pill, chill out, and not be constantly thinking about how awesome it is not to get jammed in doorways. 2. Considering whether fat people would also fit is also a bit of a challenging assignment. Because how fat is fat? Right, does something have to be big enough for literally anybody to be size inclusive, or just most people? My instincts tell me that fat acceptance would demand universal inclusivity. But economically speaking, the bigger you go, the more you're faced with diminishing returns. Are you really going to halve the number of seats in a movie theater just so that you can cater to the tiny percentage of the population who are twice as large as a normal seat? Maybe you are. I don't know. I suppose you could have a mix of different seat sizes. Though that would likely bring a whole new set of issues around pricing, eligibility, and demand. Regardless, these are all very interesting questions. 3. Telling people to advocate for inclusion seems a little too vague to be actionable. Advocate how? And to whom? Where is the detail? Do you just go up to the owner of the roller coaster or theater and ask them to make the seats bigger? Because that seems unlikely to work. Maybe you need to write to your local representative about it. I don't know. Either way, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. And I think this list of tips could use a little fine-tuning if it's really going to realize its lofty goals. But that's just my tip, haha. As a final note, I just want to put this question out there. Why are thin allies actually a thing? I understand why thin people would advocate for fat people to be treated with dignity and respect. And I support that. But as far as the haze nonsense and fat politics goes, why are there thin people going along with it all? Surely they must know that fat activist talking points are a load of baloney. And that going along with the normalization of obesity isn't in anyone's best interest. So why do it? Is it just to seem progressive or something? Because if so, surely there are better ways to do that. Size. I don't get it, man. Well, that's all I've got for you today. I hope you enjoyed the posts, and that you got something out of my commentary. What do you think? Would you join a body liberation group to talk about resisting weight stigma? Is living in a fat body a form of protest? Is human obesity a natural part of the Earth's biodiversity? Is weight as genetic as height? Are inclusive sizes only inclusive if you have them in store? What tips would you provide to thin allies to help them fight against fatphobia? Let me know in the comments. As always, don't forget to like and subscribe, or I'll make you get height reduction surgery. Just kidding, haha. Anyway, catch you later.